then. So I don't like to think of it as a preach. It's more of a share. So I need you to respond. I need you to talk back to me, okay? Two-way sort of sharing. Yes. Okay, so the story that I'm going to talk about was inspired in a way, sort of focused on, through something that I heard about called a guy called Nick Sitzman. So some of you might have heard the story before. So Nick Sitzman was born in 1947 in Plymouth in Iowa in USA. And he was in his 20s and he was working in the freight trains. The freight trains where the freezers are on to carry produce to the different states in America. Okay? So it was the boss's birthday. And the boss said, right, because it's my birthday, go home half an hour early, to celebrate my birthday and whatever. And Nick was too busy working in the freight trains. Now, Nick was known for being a bit of a worrier, a bit of an overthinker, a bit anxious. So he was working away and he didn't hear that everyone could go home half an hour early. Okay, so he was working away. Next thing you know, the freezer door shuts on him. Okay, there was an air vent, so he had oxygen coming in, but the freezer door shut on him. Right? He started to stress. He started to panic. I'd imagine he was knocking on the door. And there were some notes that he wrote as well, like, I'm freezing, I'm going to die. The next morning, the other people come in that work on the freight trains the next morning for their shift, and they found Nick, and he was dead on the floor in the freight train. Okay? Post-mortem shows that he had died of hypothermia. Okay? All his organs in his body had frozen to death. Okay? But then the freezer was actually turned off. Okay? The freezer was turned off. Okay? So what that led me to think about is the power of the mind. If the mind can think ourselves to death, how much more in a positive note can the mind do? Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? So I found that tragically, but so sort of unbelievable as well. So I wanted to talk about confidence today, okay? So I wanted to talk about the mind. So the heart is mentioned all the time in the Bible. The heart's mentioned 826 times. Mind is mentioned 96 times. Okay, but the way we think affects the way we love. The way we love affects the way we think. It's our culture. It's everything about us. Okay, so I wanted to look at the mind. So in Romans 12, verse 2, we've got a verse. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So the word that stands out for me is renewing. Okay? When you become a Christian, God doesn't flick a switch and go, your mind's sorted forever. Your mind's done. It's a renewing. It's a process. It's a constant process. Like a daily. For me, it's hourly. I hourly have to check in. Okay, and I haven't got this verse, but there's a verse in Hebrews, and it says, there's a race set before you in a cloud of witnesses, that one. So literally, the renewing for me reminds me of that race that I'm in every day. So I'm in a race. I can't run very fast, so I'm not going to win, but it's my race, so it's okay. Okay, so I'm running in the race, and there's a checkpoint. And at the checkpoint, I check in. What's your name? Hayley Ball. How are you doing? And then I carry on. So I check in with God hourly, okay? So that's the renewing. Recently on the radio, there was a thing saying that, this is a bit weird, okay? There was a thing on the radio, and it said, confidence and how long you're going to live is reflected in the stride of your walk. So, now, I don't walk that big, okay? Okay? Now, I don't walk that fast either. But Malachi turned 18 the other day, and I went down Merry Hill with him. Now, I couldn't keep up. I'm just saying, overnight, because he turned 18, like I am the guy, he's like this. And I'm like, Malachi, can you slow down, please? Can you slow down? You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is that's a bit of a weird statistic, but I just felt I had to share it. So yeah. So I'm going to talk about this mind. It's very, if you concentrate on the word in, okay? Right, then, I've asked Robert to come and read the word for us. So it's about Naaman and the miracle of him dip himself in the river 7 times. So it's from 2 Kings 5, 1 to 15 or 16. Thank you, Robert. Oh, sorry.
Just as an aside, I've already had a word of knowledge about someone's wrist, and I could see it was like a band of steel around it, and from that band of steel, metal rods went into your arm. I don't know whether that's something that actually happened to you, or it's just describing the pain that you're in with that wrist. But Hayley's going to pray for you at the end to be healed. I haven't mentioned it to her, so this is a surprise for her. Okay, so this is from 2 Kings chapter 5. It says, Now Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now bands of raiders from Aram had gone out and taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to the mistress, If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Naaman went to his master and told him what the little girl had said. By all means go, the king of Aram replied. I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, With this letter I am sending my servant Naaman to you, so that you may cure him of his leprosy. As soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and said, Am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he's trying to pick a quarrel with me. When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a message to say to him, Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord, his God, and wave his hand over the spot and cure me of the leprosy. Are not Abner and Parthar, the rivers of Damascus, better than the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in a rage. Naaman's servant went to him and said, My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he tells you, wash and be cleansed? So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God, and he stood before him and said, Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. The prophet answered, As surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept a thing. Even though Naaman urged him, he refused.
Thank you. So when God laid this message on my heart, it was embarrassingly such a long time ago. Okay. And I've had words, and I said, God, I really would like to concentrate on the 7 times, because I could do a lovely sermon on obedience and discipline and humility. And that sounds like such a great sermon. But for some reason, God said to me, that's not where the miracle started, okay? The miracle started with the servant girl, okay? And although Naaman has fought in battles and battles and killed lots of men in battles, the biggest battle he's got now is with himself and with his own mind, okay? So God said there's a process to receiving a miracle. And when you receive a miracle, you have to be in the right mindset, okay, in your mind. So it's not long before we get to know Naaman and what kind of guy he is. So in verse 1, Stephen, we've got, now Naaman was a commander of the army, the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now, what's interesting there sometimes is actually what's not there. And that sounds really weird, but can you see how he was a great man in the sight of his master? Now, I'm interested in who Naaman is when he gets in from work and he sits on the sofa and he reflects on himself. Because it sounds like his confidence lies in the sight of his master, because he's a great man in his sight. Okay, is he a great man in Naaman's sight? Does Naaman believe it as well? So because that's emphasised, that really struck out to me. Okay, so leprosy. Now leprosy, it's called something else now. It's called something like Hansen's disease. There's not many cases of it, but it's a case where you get sort of nodules of skin that overgrow and they weep, and very often they spread and it's contagious. And back then you would most probably have died of sepsis quite quickly because of the weeping and the infections. So very, very terrible. So for a man who is great and he's quite a valiant soldier, he would be stressing out. Naaman would be really stressing, thinking, I've got to sort this out because I'm a man of great victory. I do stuff, you know. In today's terms, he'd be that guy on Instagram with the 2 blue ticks, you know, and he'd be flexing and all that. So he's really, really popular and he's got such a powerful reputation. This leprosy needed to be gone. Okay. So if we look towards the young girl, in verse 2, it says, now bands of raiders from Aram. So this is from Naaman's sort of soldiers. They have gone out and taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. So a young girl, probably around 10, 11, taken captive in a raid. So raids aren't good, okay? Back then, her family, she would have been taken from her family. We don't know if her family are dead or alive. They could have been murdered in front of her eyes, and she's held captive, and she's working for Naaman's wife. Okay, I want you to remember the young girl because it's really important, because we're going to go back to the young girl in a little bit. Okay, so now Naaman's packed his clothes. His 10 outfits would take me a really long time, but I think he was in a rush, so he got it together. He got all his money, so he's got lots of money. He's gone with his servants and he's gone with his chariots, and he's got to Elisha's house. Elisha did more miracles than Elijah. So I get a bit confused between Elisha and Elijah. Okay, so Elisha is only mentioned once in the New Testament, but Elijah, he performed sort of less miracles, but he's mentioned 29 times. But Elisha is the successor of Elijah, okay? So, yeah, please don't get confused. Right, so anyway, we're going to the house of Elisha, okay? And he knocks on the door. And Elisha knows that Naaman's coming, okay? He's expecting him, okay? Now, when I go to somebody's door and they're expecting me, they open the door, they ask you in. Now, Naaman goes to Elisha's house to get this leprosy sorted out. And Elisha sends a messenger to say to him, go wash yourself in the river 7 times in the Jordan and your flesh will be restored. Now, Naaman is furious. Naaman's like, do you know who I am? Do you know that I fought battles after battles and I'm not getting respect here? Like, my reputation is not getting acknowledged. He's fuming. He's absolutely fuming. Like, He can't believe that he's been treated like this. And I mean, Elisha must have gone to the messenger. There's this guy coming to the door. He thinks he's, the guy. You need to go and tell him, on behalf of me, really, that he needs to go and wash in the river. Like, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall? So that really could be viewed as being rude, okay? But he's not being rude. Why is he not being rude? Elisha knows the miracle, and he knows where the miracle starts, okay? And it starts in Naaman's mind, okay? His status is not being acknowledged. Okay, so let me just have a look. So, and then a little bit later on, Naaman goes off. He's like so angry. He's like, how dare he? So he goes off and he has a strop. Now, and he gets upset. Now, we all get upset, okay? We all get offended. We all take offence. There's nothing wrong in that. So I've got a little story, okay? Refresh, just gone, okay? Eden, she was beside herself. Absolutely beside herself. Now, when you cry, okay, you kind of cry and you wipe away your tears. I'm not talking that kind of crying. I am talking, this crying had got volume, okay? This crying was uncontainable. Okay, so it was at that time when we was having jacket potatoes. The dining room could not contain Eden's emotions. Okay, the dining room was not big enough. Okay, she's going red. I've told her that I was going to share it, and she's like, "Mum, do you have to share that one? Can't you share like a nicer one?" I'm like, "No." So, right, she was absolutely hysterical. So we went outside to the patio and we were eating jacket potatoes. Well, I was eating mine. She wasn't eating hers. She was sobbing, okay? And I was doing the mum thing. Eden, come on. It'll be okay. It'll be all right. Like, it's gone by now. Just sort of move on a little bit. Then out comes Simon, okay? So now we've got me, Eden, crying in hysterics, and Simon. I'm like, thank you, Simon. It takes a village. Come on. Right. Simon, what's up, Eden? Give a little brief history, okay? I'm not going to share it now. And then Simon's like, oh, Eden, it'll be all right. Like, come on. Stephen's got this same sort of philosophy, like, jog on, come on. And then Simon, I couldn't believe this, Simon reached in his pocket for his phone. I was like, Simon, if ever there's a time to get your phone out, it is not now. Not now. Like, I need help with this situation here. Gets his phone out. He looks at his phone. He goes, have you heard about Mbappe? Mbappe moving to Madrid. The tears stopped. Absolutely stopped. Like, tears had gone. Okay? Absolutely gone. I was like, I've been trying here half an hour. Mbappe sorted it out. Okay. Mbappe. Okay. I was kind of pleased, but kind of livid as well. Anyway, what I'm saying to you is if Eden hadn't have spent time with Simon over in the hub, talking about football, talking about what is relevant to her, building that relationship up, Simon wouldn't have had any idea. I don't think Simon even knew what he was doing. It wasn't intentional, because that's love, isn't it? That's love for each other. That's love for church, okay? So spending time over there and doing that as a ministry with each other is just as important as the ministry we've got here, okay? So that's an example of a strop. Right. So I really want you to focus on this next bit, right? When I said before, where Naaman's confidence comes from is in the eyes of his master. Okay, so Naaman went, Stephen, verse 11, please. Naaman went away angry. Naaman went away angry and said, I thought, oh yeah, it's up there. He said, I thought. Now, how many times do we do that? How many times do I ask God to do something and no, God, I think it was meant to be like this. I wanted it like this. This is the prettier version. Can you do it like this? Because we've talked about this, God. Naaman goes, I thought that he would surely come out and stand and call on the Lord, his God, and wave his hand over me like some magic. and cure my leprosy. That's what I thought was going to happen. No, this isn't what's happening. So it didn't marry up, okay? So at this point, he was at the door. Now, when he was at the door and he didn't come to the door, when Elisha didn't come to the door, what did he do? He took offence. He was offended. At that point, he was offended. Okay. Now, when he went off in a huff and a strop, he took that offence. So I'm picking up the chair, I'm picking up the chair. I've got offended. I'm taking it with me. Okay. I'm taking me being offended back there at the door with me. And I'm going to carry it round with me. Now, this is my offence. Okay. I'm carrying my offence with me. Okay. Now, let me just explain. The next bit's quite interesting. It gets a little bit juicy. Okay. But before I get to that, I just wanted to explain. Now, this is a bit emotional, so bear with me. Okay, bear with me if I do cry. It's okay. Okay. So, now, we all get offended. We all take offence. But the problem lies in offence when it turns bitter. Okay. Now, what I'm saying to you is, in the seasons in my life when I've really struggled, okay, my confidence is really low, like it's down here. So is my mood as well, okay. My mood's really low, my confidence is really low. And funnily enough, well, it's not funny at the time, but funnily enough, how close I am to God as well is quite far away. So my identity in who I am in Jesus is a bit hazy. It's a bit fuzzy, okay. And I don't know the vision that God has for me because I'm not by him. Okay, so I'm going to come and sit next to Stuart. Okay. Now, if I sit next to Stuart, pretend Stuart's God, right? Okay. We can both see the stage. Okay. If God's saying, Hayley, you need to start to preach and get up to that stage, I'm next to him. So I can see where I'm going. Okay. But if I'm far away, up there, I can't see the vision he's got for me to preach. Do you get what I'm saying? When my confidence is low, the funny thing is as well, I get more offended. And it's quite strange. I've got a little one for you. I mean, you could ask Stephen, I get offended all the time. I go off on strops all the time, okay? But I've got a little one for you. I am that middle-aged, stereotypical woman that goes to a weight club thing, okay? Now, I went the other day. I was fuming. I went, he knows my name. I get a little bit scared when people know my name or I don't know very well. But anyway, he said, oh, hello, Hayley. I went, all right. Yeah, I've got a little book for you. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're there. This is the bloke saying this. I'm not sure if you're there yet, but here's the book. I took the book off him. Do you know what the book said? Said. I couldn't believe my eyes. It said, how to lose weight during the menopause. I was absolutely fuming. Okay? But I couldn't talk about it, could I? I couldn't talk about it because I wanted to take offence. Right. So, I took the book with me. I was like, I drove all the way home. I can't remember me driving because I was so fuming. I was driving. How dare he give me a book about the menopause? Okay. It was only yesterday I was being asked for ID. Now I'm being given books about the menopause. How rude. But you know what I did? I took the offence with me, like this. In the car, I opened the door, I slammed it down, I said, Stephen, I've been given a book about the menopause. And no, I'm not there yet. He was right, I am not there yet. Okay. What I'm saying to you is, when my confidence is low, I am almost ready. I'm begging to be offended. I want to be offended. I'll look for something to be offended by. You know why? Because my confidence is low. that offence that I need to take and I want to take and I'm ready to take, it validates my mood and it validates my self-esteem and it keeps me low. Do you know what I'm saying? It keeps my confidence low. So that's about offence and taking offence. Now, this is where it gets juicy, okay? So, Naaman went away angry and thought, verse 11, But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord and wave his hand over the spot and cure my leprosy. Okay, next verse, Verse 12. Thank you. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in a rage. Now, why does he want to go back home and wash in them rivers? What's so interested about home? Why does he want to go back home? Do you know why? Look at verse 1, please, Stephen. Verse 1, can you see that bit? Great man in the sight of his master. That's where his confidence lies. He says, I want to go back home because you know what? I ain't getting no respect round here. For all them armies and all them battles I've been in, I need some recognition. I'm not getting it round here. Obviously, there's no Instagram, is there? So, I'm not getting the respect I deserve here. I am absolutely fuming and I'm offended because nobody knows who I am. Okay. So, now, this is an awkward moment. 13, please. Now, Naaman's servants went to him and said, now, can you imagine? I think there's a few conversations gone in between there. Can you imagine Naaman's servants, he's gone off in a rage. He's the boss, right? You'd be like, you need to go and have a word. You need to go and say that. I am not doing that because... And then this other guy's going, well, you're his favourite, so I really think you should go and tell him. Do you know what I mean? You need to go and tell him. And then the other guy's like, well, we're going to lose our job soon because if his leprosy spreads and he dies, we've got no job. So they go off and they say, Naaman's servant went to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? Now, these servants, they know him really well. If Elijah had said, can you go and kill some bear? Can you go and lead some great army of 10,000 men to that war there? He'd have done it. He'd have done it. You know why he'd have done it? Because he'd have got recognition. It would have validated his status even more. Okay? So that's why he wants to go back home. Okay? He wants to do something great. He's not into something that is solitary. Nobody's going to know about at all. Okay? And he dipped himself in the river. But what a brave servant that is. But you know what? In this story, if there is anyone in this story to take offence and be offended, it's not Naaman. You know who it is? It's the girl. Right. Can we go back to the girl? The girl is in verse 2. Verse 2. Now, bands of raiders from Aram had gone out and taken a captive a young girl from Israel. She served Naaman's wife. Next one. She said to her mistress, if only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Now, if we go to James 3, 13 to 18. Now, it says, if only. That means to me, she's been thinking about having this conversation for a long time because she's longing. And longing for something is like a hope, and that hope's come from God. She's come from Israel. She's telling Naaman to go to Israel to get cured. She knows the love of God. She's felt it. She's heard about it. She knows. Okay. So, she had every right to be offended. Now, when offence manifests in us for a long time, it can turn to bitterness. Okay? And that's when the problems start in our minds and our hearts. Okay? Now, my earthly nature says to me that girl, modern day girl, be in Netherton, outside Allen's, bumping into a friend, and she'd go, "You all right?" "Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?" "Oh, have you heard about Naaman? He's got leprosy. He's got everything he deserves. He took me from my family and he captured me, and I'm a slave. I'm his servant. I'm not by my family anymore. I don't know what's happened to my family." Okay? It was horrible. The raid was terrible. He's got everything he deserves. I'm pleased, God, yes. Back of the net, God. He sorted him out. And I'm pleased. And I want him to die of a long and painful death with leprosy because he's going to get what he deserves. But no, the girl doesn't do that. Now, in James 3:13 to 18, it's a bit of a long one, bear with me. It's quite powerful. Okay. So, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humility. That comes from wisdom. But if you harbour bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come from heaven, but it is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good spirit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Peacemaker. What is that girl? That girl is a peacemaker. She is literally sowing peace in that house. She's not going round with bitterness, which there says is demonic, it's evil. Okay? Especially when we say, "Oh, God's done that comeuppance." Okay? So, the girl had more right to be offended, but she knew there's no room in her heart to take offence and let it turn bitter. You know why? Jeremiah 29:11. Okay. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. So, when we talked about the hope before, where she went, if only, that's the hope she's got. She's hoping that her master meets God, takes on God as his saviour. Okay. Now, that means to say, a peacemaker, we've got Christ in us, okay? We do things in Christ, through Christ. Our identity is in Christ, okay? If we sit close to him, okay? Our vision, we can see it. So we can make peace. We can make peace with people's problems in the hub. People can tell us. We can pray over people. We can literally sow peace, okay? Philippians 4:7. Okay. Now, when I say this, I want you to remember, where did Naaman's confidence come from? It was in the eyes of his master. Okay. Philippians 4:7 says, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Okay. This morning, I want us to know that peace. The peace that can guard your hearts and your minds. That renewing of your mind, that transforming of your mind. So I'm going to ask Nathan to come up. And if there is anyone that feels that they need peace or that confidence that looks like Christ in order to see their vision on their life and God's goodwill, just feel free to come down the front and we will pray. And Robert, if you want to come down and pray as well for people. Okay. Now this song, we're going to sing a song called Champion. Now, ask anyone who lives in my house. This has been played on repeat for a good solid 4 days. Okay? I believe there's a connection between this story for Naaman and the servant girl and this song champion. Okay? I'm going to give the microphone to Nathan because he's done this before.